Location unknown. Location found.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Spider-Man Brand New Day just hit theaters, so this will be my post-credit scene video and breakdown of the end of the movie because it clearly sets up all the characters for Avengers Secret Wars and explains what's going on with them during the events of Avengers Doomsday, both movies which are releasing later this year and then December 2027. There are a lot of moments during the ending that also directly set up that X-Men 2028 movie, but mostly it feels like a good time to wear my Secret Wars t-shirt because it is really like a Secret Wars post-credit scene. Careful for spoilers because we will be talking about the end of the movie and all the things that the movie will set up in Avengers Doomsday, Secret Wars, and the new X-Men 2028 movie. At the end of the movie, Sadie Sink has revealed herself as Jean Elaine Grey, which is her full name in the comics, who did come from inside the MCU, so there is no crazy multiverse explainer for where she comes from and how she got her powers. She is just a mutant who was born in the MCU naturally. She's the next new MCU mutant, along with her sister Sarah Grey, who is also from the comics, and in the MCU version, not the comics, is also a telepath like Jean Grey, but not telekinetic. Her sister is just a telepath and not as powerful as Jean Grey. They're the newest mutants that were born inside the MCU naturally that we know of. There might be more that we just haven't seen yet, since Namor, Miss Marvel, and Wonder Man. Wonder Man was like the next most recent character they introduced as a mutant. Given what's happening with Avengers Secret Wars and the soft reboot that Kevin Feige is doing on the MCU and how the X-Men era of the MCU and Marvel Phase 7 is going to play out after Secret Wars, I think they're the only new mutants of the MCU till after Secret Wars in this soft reboot. Kevin Feige already said they're going to use the end of the Jonathan Hickman Secret Wars comic book run to inspire how they end the movie version of Avengers Secret Wars and soft reboot everything into Marvel Phase 7, where they basically bring all these multiverse characters like the X-Men, mutant characters, the Fantastic Four, to the MCU universe, and the 616 Earth more closely resembles the comic book 616 Earth, where all the different types of characters have always existed together, and they don't think that it's weird. So when the X-Men 2028 movie happens, we'll see the new X-Men team come together, but they'll all come from the MCU and they'll believe that they always lived on the same planet as the Avengers and the Fantastic Four. With a couple of exceptions like Sadie Sink's Jean Grey, who came from before that and always lived on the MCU before that.
And bought some jeans. Grey, for instance.
I think the real question there is, will Sadie Sink's Jean Grey remember the MCU before Avengers Secret Wars, or will she not know about all the changes that happened? I think the idea is they want her to remember the before time, so she'll go into the new X-Men reboot movie remembering what happened during Avengers Secret Wars. They reveal that their mother gave them to foster care when they were younger and their X gene expressed and they started showing signs of powers. They don't really explain what happened to their mother after that if she's still alive in the MCU, only that they believe that their mother did not care about them. During a flashback, before the events of the movie pick up, but after the events of Avengers Endgame, William Metzger is revealed to be running damage control and abducts Jean Grey's sister Sarah, who saved Jean from also being captured in experiments on Sarah for years, trying to find a way to replicate telepathic powers with technology, inventing a new machine that we see inside a room-like prison where Jean gets put at the end of the movie. Throughout the movie, the reason why Jean was seemingly attacking people, taking over everyone's minds, hopping around to people's minds like Scorpion and the Hulk, is to find something called VMAX inside damage control, where she believes that her sister is being held because it was the last thing her sister telepathically showed her before she died. William Metzger tricks Spider-Man into helping him capture Jean Grey so that he can continue his experiments on her, so she discovers that the VMAX she was looking for is actually just the logo of the vents in the ceiling of the room like prison where her sister had also been held all these years. She starts recognizing all of her sister's things inside the makeshift room. On the ceiling, the vents read Vents Max, and she had mistakenly thought that it was VMAX, not reading the full logo. It felt very much like that first Star Trek movie with the Voyager reveal. Oh, it said Voyager, just Voyager didn't realize what was going on. So the big reveal of the movie is actually something that we predicted a long time ago, that Jean Grey is not actually a villain, it's really William Metzger and Damage Control who are the actual villains in the movie. And her sister had been trying to tell her telepathically where she had been kept prisoner this whole time as she was dying. So if it wasn't clear, her sister is dead in the MCU. Jean Grey then reveals she's much more powerful than her sister when Damage Control tries to continue the experiment to replicate telepathic powers using the machine they created. It pushes Jean's powers to their absolute limit, and she fully comes into her Omega level telepathy from the comics and also her telekinesis. So if you're not a big comic book reader, Jean Grey is already an Omega-level mutant before she gets the Phoenix Force. They want to set up the idea that she does not have the Phoenix Force yet in this movie. She's just using her Omega-level powers, and that's how she's able to basically freeze 1 kilometer worth of New York City in a moment that's just like the Thunderbolts movie with the Sentry almost consuming all of New York in the void. Basically the same idea, just using a different type of power to do it. They also want to set up the idea that she can become even more powerful in the future with more practice. Like, this is still early days for her character. She's just kind of learning how her abilities work. She doesn't fully understand them yet. So in the movie, her psionic blast, where she freezes everyone using her telepathy and telekinesis, is meant to be like a bigger version of Professor X at the beginning of X-Men 2, freezing the whole museum in their tracks, but not a couple people. Like, there are a couple people that are able to walk around inside all the frozen people. Before Jean is able to go dark and kill everyone in revenge, including William Metzger for killing her sister, Spider-Man embraces his new spider mutations, defeats the Hand, which Jean Grey had been controlling at the same time, like all together at the same time, fighting him at once. The Hand are also working for Damage Control now during the movie. They don't really explain what happens to them between the events of Daredevil, Netflix Season 2, and this movie, but at some point they started working for Damage Control, so they basically got a government pardon. So this is why they were at Damage Control in the first place, and Jean Grey just telepathically jumps into their minds and forces them to fight Spider-Man.
Hey, can we do this one at a time, please?
You're the only one who can defeat it.
Spider-Man uses his web tornado to stop them, and then stops Jean from killing everyone in New York City when he lets her finally enter his mind, which she had not been able to do previously in the movie, and see a memory that she had tried to see earlier in the movie. And it's the moment that Aunt May had discovered Peter had powers, so they brought back Marissa Tomei to film a brand new scene, making it seem like an old scene, with her talking to Peter in his old bedroom in her old apartment, and this is old Stark Tech suit from Spider-Man Homecoming, just to let you know when this is supposed to be happening, where she gives him a very motherly version of the great power, great responsibility speech without literally saying those words because they wanted to wait for her to actually speak the great power, great responsibility words. But that's kind of the vibe of the speech here, where she's basically explained to him that his life is going to change in really significant ways, but she tries to help him keep his emotional core and know that the friends around him, the people that love him because he's Peter and not because he's Spider-Man, not because he has powers, but because Jean Grey is in the memory. She views it, she sees the scene as if she's hearing this speech, getting this therapy session from Aunt May herself. So it acts like the world's best mutant therapy session for Jean Grey. And they play the scene like Aunt May is talking to Jean about how everyone close to her loves her, not because she's special or has powers, but because of the person that she is, and fundamentally she's loved, and it's those relationships, her friends around her, her found family's love for her that will sustain her in the most important thing, despite the fact that things are going to change and get real crazy really fast in the future. And the movie treats this moment like it's preparing Jean Grey for the upcoming X-Men 2028 movie and the family that she will make of her friends when she joins Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters and meets all those other X-Men characters. And everything that's going to come after that down the road, like way down the road, with her version of the Phoenix Saga, where she will feel isolated and it allows the Phoenix Force to dominate her mind and turns very dark, very stabby, burn down the universe kind of vibes. So a lot of this movie is used to establish the Jean Grey character and lay the track work for her like full comic book saga through the Phoenix era. But at this point, she hasn't literally been bonded with the Phoenix Force yet. They're saving that for the future X-Men movies. While this was happening, Punisher, separately, not hearing any of this conversation and learning that Jean had backed down from killing everyone, thinks that he needs to kill Jean Grey before she kills all the people in New York City. A very Punisher type of solution, just kill the person that he thinks is the biggest threat, fires a long-range sniper shot at her, and Spider-Man takes the bullet to keep her from dying, but he almost dies himself by bleeding out. Now that Jean Grey has become Spider-Man's ride-or-die friend, she uses her telekinesis, which is now expressed, to stop him from bleeding out until Punisher can take him to the hospital, recreating the Marvel Civil War comic book cover of Punisher carrying Spider-Man who's about to die. One of the real bummers here at the end of the movie is that they also revealed that they filmed a scene with Rosario Dawson in this hospital as her night nurse character from Daredevil in Defenders, and she was just going to be helping Spider-Man recover from his wounds, from the bullet wound, and have a moment with Frank Castle because of the Defenders connection, the Daredevil Netflix connection. Like, oh, I remember you from the Defenders.
Or more accurately, never happened.
Rosario Dawson recently revealed that they filmed the scene, but then they cut it during editing, so hopefully they'll put it on the Blu-ray. Like, hopefully somehow we'll get a chance to actually see the scene. There was probably all kinds of references to the events of the Daredevil Netflix series to Matt Murdock, what's happening with Daredevil Born Again right now, because that means that Claire Temple would have been around for all the events of Daredevil Born Again in watching all the stuff that was happening with Mayor Kingpin and with Matt Murdock. Maybe she can also come back for Daredevil Born Again Season 3 because all the Defenders characters are coming back for that too. William Metzger ends the movie escaping. They have no idea where he went with the power dampening technology Spider-Man also developed. So Spider-Man in the MCU, this is like a big thing for his character. He's going to be really, really upset about this in the future, is going to be responsible for the power dampening collars in the X-Men comics. Damage Control already used his in the movie, modifying it further and using it on Jean Grey. They were literally using these during X-Men 97 episodes recently, just slightly different versions of them, so just expect Damage Control to start using those as a big X-Men anti-mutant organization during the X-Men era of the MCU going forward. During the movie, Damage Control is also revealed to have been testing on mutants and enhanced humans for years, trying to replicate powers, which is also foreshadowing, I think, for the advanced Sentinels, like the ones we saw during X-Men Days of Future Past, who could replicate mutant powers. That was a whole subplot during Days of Future Past. So I think it also confirms the theory that MCU Damage Control will eventually create Sentinels. They'll come from that organization, and William Metzger will eventually return as a larger X-Men villain in those movies. At the hospital while Spider-Man is recovering, Punisher helps protect his identity because he's been trying to wear his mask everywhere so nobody learns who he is. I think that Claire Temple was probably supposed to learn who he was because she learned Daredevil's secret identity, so she's kind of in on everybody's secret. Punisher then helps Spider-Man sneak out of the hospital, just not wearing a mask, pretending like he's normal Peter Parker that nobody notices because nobody thinks that Peter Parker is a special person. And he gets to have a moment like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man during Spider-Man 3, where he's standing in the middle of a crowd outside of Spider-Man's window where they're loving him, and he's realizing, oh, everybody loves me, just like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. As he's walking out of the hospital, though, one of the doctors gives him a very knowing look, and I think the doctor figured out that he was the guy who they were operating on under the mask. So, the doctor knows, but he's probably not going to tell anybody his identity. And there's a little kid in the crowd that seems like he also realizes that Peter is Spider-Man too, and gives him the little thwip sign, and Peter gives him a thwip sign back. So there are a couple people that seem like they figured out Spider-Man's identity all of a sudden. During the movie, Spider-Man had become a huge celebrity in New York City, like the Avengers. Everybody loves him around the city, even the people in power, except for J. Jonah Jameson, who weirdly is not mentioned at all during the movie. It was kind of a bummer, but I think that was because the movie was meant to be more serious in tone, and he's a bit of a sillier character the way they used him during the John Watts Spider-Man No Way Home trilogy. Yes, Yelena Belova did appear in the movie a couple times, but it was mostly to help Spider-Man out, and it was before the events of Avengers Doomsday, but she said that the new Avengers were dealing with really big stuff. That's the crisis in space, like the actual incursions, right before Avengers Doomsday picks up and before the Thunderbolts post-credit scene. So both of the scenes of her in the Russian bathhouse, which she calls her office, quote-unquote, like just the place that she hangs out in that Russian bathhouse when she's not at the new Avengers Tower, were just meant to set up the idea that she's active in New York City in helping out Spider-Man on a regular basis, like when he needs access to government things that he wouldn't normally be able to get into. Mostly they just use her scenes for comedy and to remind you about the events of the Thunderbolts movie and provide some connective tissue to Avengers Doomsday and what's happening in the Thunderbolts post-credit scene. But the movie is meant to take place after the Thunderbolts movie, before the Thunderbolts post-credit scene, if that wasn't clear. Spider-Man then takes the day off from fighting crime, he finally takes a day off, then runs into Ned Leeds at the same bodega that they both go to all the time, which is also where Ned and MJ's apartment is, and approaches Ned, giving him their secret handshake from Spider-Man Homecoming, which Ned just instinctively knows because of muscle memory. Apparently Doctor Strange's spell doesn't affect muscle memory. then reintroduces himself as Peter, and suddenly Ned realizes that he is Spider-Man again, like he figures it out, because earlier in the movie, MJ finds Peter's letter that he wrote to her at the end of No Way Home, discovers his identity again on her own, and then he confesses everything that he did with Doctor Strange's spell. After Spider-Man takes her back to her and Ned's apartment, while still in his Spider-Man mask, he plays with Legos with Ned Leeds like they did during Spider-Man Homecoming, who doesn't know his identity yet again. He's just a fan of Spider-Man because he remembers Spider-Man saving him and MJ during high school in each of the previous Spider-Man movies, so he builds the Spidey Tracker app and keeps trying to find Spider-Man to thank him. MJ then accidentally reveals that Spider-Man's real name is Peter, which Ned flips out over, so at the end of the movie, when Peter introduces himself as Peter, he remembers his voice from the party the previous night and the Legos that they just had, the person that he was just speaking to, like, you sound like the guy under Spider-Man's mask, and I remember the handshake, so this is all just connecting the dots, it all comes crashing down, and he realizes, you are Spider-Man. So now Ned knows his secret identity again, and all three probably start hanging out again all the time when he's not out saving people. But he and MJ don't actually get back together. She ends the movie on top of their high school in a moment mirroring the same scene from No Way Home where they were talking about going to MIT someday with a smile on her lips, like leaving you the idea, like the room, that they could get back together eventually, but they'll just be friends and hang out together as friends until that happens. So in the movie, nothing changes anything about Doctor Strange's spell. It's still active, it's still doing its job, but they just figured out his identity again naturally. There's also the idea that during the movie, she helps him with his inhibitor chip. She went to MIT, like Ned, so she's on the level of science bro with Ned Leeds and Peter, so she can also be a woman in the chair, helping like Ned Leeds will help Spider-Man in the future eventually. Ned also seems like he's even better, even smarter after being at MIT. Jean Grey ends the movie on a bus heading to upstate New York. Everybody realizes what that means, clearly meant to foreshadow her going to the X Mansion, which is in Westchester, upstate New York, joining Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters during the new X-Men 2028 movie. Like, they want to show you she's metaphorically and literally just going off into the events of that new X-Men movie. Peter then ends the movie at Aunt May's grave, also saying that he's not going to try being Spider-Man all alone again anymore. He's going to let his friends back into his life, and the friends now also include Jean Grey. She's now one of his ride or dies, meaning that Spider-Man will also probably continue to cross over with the future X-Men down the road too. The Hulk ends the movie going into police custody after he transformed back into Savage Hulk as Banner, who goes into a psychiatric prison with the world believing that he's broken bad. Like, what happened to him? Why did he suddenly turn bad again? Like, they're treating it like it's a very bad thing. I think this is also meant to show you why he's not in Avengers Doomsday, and he's off dealing with his recent Hulk out moment becoming Savage Hulk again, but he will return in Secret Wars along with the other characters from this movie, skipping over Avengers Doomsday. There's only one post-credit scene, there's no mid-credits, but during the credits themselves, they show different scenes of regular people around New York City just enjoying their lives with their friends, which is meant to mirror the whole plot, the whole arc of the movie of Peter letting his friends back into his life. The whole movie is about learning to ask for help when you need it and realizing that human connection is like the most important thing. No spider is an island unto themselves. Jean Grey's plot also mirrored his plot too. No X-Man is an X-Man unto themselves, including Jean Grey. You need friends, and she needs to let more friends into her life too, which will be those new X-Men that she'll meet during the X-Men 2028 movie.
To me, my X-Men.
When the post-credit scene begins, it is an Avengers Secret Wars post-credit scene. During it, the Spidey tracker that Ned created detects another Spider-Man sighting in Queens at Peter's apartment, but it says location unknown, even though it's clearly in Queens. So you're like, oh, that's where Spider-Man lives. But I think the reason why it says location unknown is because it detects that it is not the 616 MCU Earth. It is on another Earth. And I think the idea is it's meant to reveal that Spider-Man is waking up, whatever this day is, on Battleworld after the end of Avengers Doomsday, when Dr. Doom becomes God Emperor Doom from the Jonathan Hickman Secret Wars run, which Kevin Feige said that they're adapting some of, and collapses the rest of the multiverse into Battleworld, and some multiverse survivors wind up making it to Battleworld. But Spider-Man, who wasn't around for the events of Avengers Doomsday, he doesn't see all the incursions that are happening or the battle with Dr. Doom. He just wakes up one morning and they're on Battleworld world without him realizing it, and they treat it like a funny moment where he realizes when he wakes up that some things are different. Like, wait a minute, I don't know who you are. Why are you living in my apartment? Some people that he thought that were dead are probably back now because of the multiverse, and just a lot of things seem really off to him until he runs into other Avengers characters and starts to realize what's happened. Then the Spidey tracker continues to ping, looking for Spider-Man's identity, trying to figure out where he is, even though there's a Spider-Man signal on Earth in Queens. As the camera zooms out to a wider space shot, a wider shot of the Earth, suddenly a bunch of streaking lights jump across space really quickly to Battleworld in the app screen. Then all the stars around Earth shift dramatically very quickly, and the Spidey tracker suddenly says, "Location found," and it shows another second Spider-Man signal in the middle of space, not on a planet. During my second screening of the movie, I saw it with a bunch of regular people. There was a lot of confusion about what this meant. Wait a minute, why is Spider-Man suddenly in two places at the same time? I don't think that was what was happening. I think they're trying to show that there are two versions of Spider-Man that suddenly show up on the tracker. It's detecting both versions of Spider-Man. And one of the versions is just in outer space, and one is on Battleworld. So I think the streaking colors that happen really quickly past the frame are likely from the end of Avengers Doomsday as Doctor Doom becomes God Emperor Doom, achieves his full cosmic power, but all the heroes lose. He transforms the remainder of the multiverse into Battleworld, but a group of the people from Doomsday survive and make it to Battleworld, and the streaking lights are those people making it to Battleworld. There's going to be a lot of people that die during Avengers Doomsday. Just early RIP, press F to pay respects to all those people. And I think the reason why the second Spidey signal is in the middle of outer space is because the group of people that do survive also wind up in space, and that might be the Fantastic Four ship. And that second Spider-Man might be either Andrew Garfield's version or Tobey Maguire's version of Spider-Man. Then you just see the text saying Spider-Man will return, but it doesn't say return in Avengers Secret Wars or Avengers Doomsday. It just says Spider-Man will return, which is typically what they read. It just says so-and-so will return. And I think this soft confirms the theories that Tom Holland's Spider-Man will not appear in Avengers Doomsday. It'll be Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man that appears instead as like the Spider-Man of the movie. And now it also seems like Sadie Sink's Jean Grey will not appear in Avengers Doomsday, and this is also probably why they're not including Famke Janssen's Jean Grey or Sophie Turner's Jean Grey in Avengers Doomsday, because they just want you to focus on the new Jean Grey that they just introduced in the MCU, but they're not quite ready to carry her story forward yet. They want to deal with the classic X-Men first in Avengers Doomsday, so I wouldn't be surprised if when the movie picks up, they explain that Famke's version died at some point previously because of the incursions. And I think it also soft confirms that we're going to see Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man on his Earth fighting the X-Men because of an incursion. There have been a lot of rumors that we'll see Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man at like the very beginning of the movie fighting X-Men characters.
I found an alien too. On Earth and in space.
Oh.
Yeah, he was purple.
I want to fight an alien.
Andrew Garfield wasn't originally supposed to return till Avengers Secret Wars, which is also why I think he might be the second Spider-Man on the Spidey tracker during the post-credit scene. But the joke here is they're kind of doing the same thing with Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the post-credit scene that they did with the Vulture during the Morbius post-credit scene, just using different powers and a different explainer for it. Basically pulling a Morbius, getting sucked to another planet. It just happens to be being sucked to Battleworld. And I think the idea is that Battleworld and Secret Wars is going to be a combination of the three worlds that we see in the trailer, the X-Men's world, the MCU, and the Fantastic Four worlds. They're all colliding with each other in an incursion at the same time, with a couple of extra bits of other worlds, like Andrew Garfield from his universe, other cameos of other characters from other Marvel movies before the MCU days. For those of you also disappointed that they didn't address the symbiote from the end of Spider-Man No Way Home and post-credit scene or Venom's character, Tom Holland did say they'd address it at some point. Now I think that this confirms that they're going to save him seeing the symbiote for the first time until Avengers Secret Wars, like the comics. They did a version of his comic book symbiote origin story from the 1980 Secret Wars during the 1990s Spider-Man animated series. But the movie makes no mention of the Venom symbiote or any of that stuff, or really like any of the other real big stuff from Spider-Man No Way Home. There's still a lot more to unpack, so I'm in the middle of working on my longer breakdown video of all the Easter eggs and like big reveals from the movie itself, all the big cameo scenes, because there's a lot of other stuff that they use to set up the future X-Men 2028 movie, along with other future Spider-Man movies too. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below, and let me know if you have any questions about the post-credit scene or the end of the movie that I didn't address in this video, but I will try to address everything from the entire movie in my full breakdown video. My full breakdown and Easter eggs video should post tomorrow. Be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Everybody click here for that video. I'll update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for all my other big Comic-Con trailers and Avengers Doomsday trailer videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.